Hi, my name is Dylan Van Vleet. I am the amps and effects buyer at Guitar Center, and I just heard the new Agoura sound engine for the first time on the brand new Helix Stadium, and oh my god, it's incredible. We compared it with the old Helix engine, and the difference is so clear. I play Helix all the time. I love Helix. It's my current live rig, but the new Helix literally just sounds so responsive and full and balanced. It feels like you're in the room with the amp, and not just an amp, every amp you could ever imagine wanting in a box. It's incredible.
Hey, it's Max from Guitar Center. We're here at Yamaha Guitar Group in Calabasas, California, and we're here today to celebrate not only 10 years of Helix, but we just stepped out of a pretty cool presentation to learn more about the brand new Helix Stadium. I'm here today with Eric, with Ben, and with Brandon, and we're going to talk all about Helix, all about designing Helix Stadium, and all that goes into it. So how you guys doing?
Exhausted.
Pretty big day.
A little big.
Yeah. So during the live stream, a lot of things jumped out to me. 10 years ago, the pretty big impact of Helix coming out. I remember the day that we got our first sample at Guitar Center. I think it was either right before or right after it was announced. Plugged in and was like, oh, this is different. This is a pretty big deal. But you guys focused on a lot of stuff, how this is going to sound better, the problems it'll solve. But the thing that jumped out to me most was the community of users, but also the community here at Line 6 that put this all together. So I'm wondering if you can take us back as best as your memory can, to the start of the original Helix project and what you wanted to accomplish outside of obviously making a great product. What were the goals that informed the original Helix?
We were running on, traditional Line 6, business models at the point. It was like, hey, let's make a much better Pod HD 500 with all, new modeling, enhanced everything, and let's go nuts and let's put a big color screen on it. And when we found out it was going to be 3 times the price of our previous flagship, there were a lot of people freaking out. At one point, it wasn't even going to come out. We were going to fast track LT instead. And so there were a lot of people really nervous, and it ended up being a hit. And at the time we thought, okay, 3 years, 4 years, we'll have a new one out. And it didn't really happen because we kept wanting to improve it. And it turned out it sort of morphed into a platform that then informed all sorts of additional products like HX Effects and HX Stomp and the Helix native plugin, HX Stomp XL, and then a lot of that engine ended up in Pod Go and Pod Express. So it ballooned into this massive line of guitar products, and we just didn't have time to just sit back and go, okay, what's next? Because we knew it was next because we just have to build this thing. And then we started talking about Stadium, probably late 2017, but it didn't ramp up until a few years ago. So we had a lot of time to collect data and try to work, not in parallel. So we were doing a lot of design work and we were running ideas back and forth. And like, can we do this? And Brandon's like, no, or wait, maybe you can. And so we had the advantage of just having time while we're building this Helix platform to sort of figure out what the next platform might be like. So, and that ended up Stadium. So
Yep, very true. And yeah, if we would have done it at the time, there's a lot of the features that are going to be in Stadium that we never could have done at the time. So it was really nice for us to have that time to work on.
And a bunch of Stadium features were supposed to be in Helix when it originally had a touchscreen too. So a lot when the touchscreen went away, we're like, oh, we can't do the XY controller. This doesn't work. Focus view, well, we can't do that. So the fact that it's like, all right, now we can do the touchscreen thing, and it's like, all right, let's bring all that stuff back. So some of the features go back, a decade or more.
Yeah. So as you started the Stadium project, I think, as guitarists, you're always chasing the best tone you can imagine, right? The sound in your head, I think, is what you guys talked about. What are the X factors as you started working on Stadium that jumped out as like, oh, this is like even better? How does that manifest as a player? You talked about the even deeper level of modeling and stuff like that, for someone who maybe doesn't look at schematic every day, that might not understand truly what a tube rectifier versus a solid state rectifier does, or what type of lead dress you're using. How does that manifest?
We had been using the same basic modeling techniques all the way back since Pod HD 500. And we get more DSP blocks, but the kind of process was the same. And as we moved from like XT to HD 500, we got a little more, refined, and then HD500 Helix, like, oh, that's a lot more DSP, so we got even more refined, so we could do a little more accuracies, but we were using the same kind of
tools.
just the same modeling vocabulary, let's just say. And for this new one, we actually knew it was coming, so I had a little bit of runway, and we worked with some of our very experienced and expert DSP engineers and developed a whole new way of simulating vacuum tubes, simulating how the circuits actually behave. And these new tools fit into the old tools, but it's a totally new method of modeling, unlike anything we've ever done here before. I remember the first time we kind of did a test run because we had this idea and someone had built it up here in the company, and like, okay, how's it gonna sound? And I played, and like, there's something here. Like, there's just something under the fingers that this is working. Let's go.
That was the JCM, right?
Yeah, that was.
I'm in my office, and I hear
Yeah.
that kerrang. I'm like, and I honestly swore somebody dragged the JCM up into the lounge. Like, it was like unmistakable immediately.
Like, it's one of those things where we modeled the 2203 circuit for the test, the first one, and I love that amp, and I'm an analog amp nerd guy. I've been an amp repairman. I go and I tweak amps, and I have a set of mods that I normally do to JCM 800s for people to kind of maybe tame some of the upper mids. And like, whenever I hear a stock, I'm like, oh, that's it. And I played it, and I'm like, I want to mod this model. Like, this is doing everything I like and everything I don't prefer. But it's all, I'm like, how is this doing that? That is great. And it was, done in a totally different manner and a different kind of way of approaching the circuit modeling that was differently done. I'm like, there's something here. So then we just went all in on that, and have just been spending the last couple years going through and redoing and creating new models from the classic amps for this new stadium platform.
Refining the process. And
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it speaks a lot to it too, where you mentioned, I want to be able to mod this, where with the way that we're doing it now, you could look at exactly what analog mods you would do and just implement those, and they're there. So, it's so real that you can just, take
So
over.
it's almost like when the warts show up is when you're like, oh yeah, I think we got it here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing is I always tell people it's like computer animation. Like, when the first models that Line 6 did were kind of like the early Pixar films, where it's like the shapes are a little more bubbly and you got the idea, but it was obviously kind of maybe a cartoon, everything that was exaggerated. Then as it got more powerful, you can start to see like individual hairs moving. And now when you see a modern animated film, you're like, whoa, look at all that little fine-tuned detail. There's finally the processing power to do that. That's showing up in the models. Like the little hairs moving, the little tiny details are popping through, and you're like, oh, this is great if people want them, but we also want to be able to take them out if people don't want them. Because some people are like, I want a smooth, easy to play guitar thing. So they can still use that as the basis.
And that's the hype nub.
Yeah.
It's funny you bring that up. I remember, it's probably 10 plus years ago. I don't know if they were quite multi-tracks, but stems started coming out around a lot of classic songs. I think probably people were ripping them somehow from Guitar Hero or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the solo from Bohemian Rhapsody came out, and it was exposed, and you heard all these ghost notes, all these harmonics from the AC30s that Brian was using that normally get buried under all of the tracks and would get totally lost in a live show. But those are some of the, frankly, the warts that would be filtered out of a mix, filtered out of a modern product, whatever. But that's kind of the stuff you're talking about, of like when that...
Yeah, classic guitar sound specifically, where the amp is just being pushed and the power supply is being driven well beyond what the component values say it can do. It sounds gnarly. Like, there's some weird stuff that's happening, and when you're in front of a real amp doing that, it's kind of shocking. And especially if you mic it and solo it in the studio, you're like, oh, that's doing some stuff. But when you put it into a mix, it's a totally different thing, and those weird rough edges help the guitar tone stick out without needing more volume. And that was one thing we noticed in even in HD500 is like, if you add a little bit of the inner modulation from the power supply, from like the ripple and hum going through, you kind of get this slight unmusical cloud of harmonics around the notes that kind of sounds bad, but in a mix, it really helps things just kind of pop through and cut through. And we've done that. And sometimes players love it, and sometimes they don't. That's where original models came from, is sometimes we would take those warts and those weird artifacts out. And, we want to, that's the thing, is we want to be accurate. We really love the science of it. Like, me personally, like I'm more of a scientist, I like to think, than I am just like a tone sculptor. But it's not just me. I'm not making the product for only me. And there's a wide variety of players, and none of them are wrong. They want what they want because they want to be creative and they want to have something fun, and that helps them be a great musician. And if they're like, I don't like all that garbage around the notes, they're like, okay, here it is without it. And you're also right. We can all be right in this situation.
Yeah. So Eric, you kind of put the formal name on it, but the hype control, right, that you just talked about. Can you guys explain that just a little more specific to what that actual experience will be for a user?
Well, Ben could do some of the technicalities, but it really stems from people online who claim that that Helix models might not be as accurate as they think they are. But we've been in the room and we've done the double-blind A/B listening tests with like engineers who come in, who record those amps, and we'll sequence changes between the real amp and the modeled amp. And at the end, like, well, when are you going to switch? And we're like, well, we did 11 times while you were playing. So we know they're super accurate, but if people are claiming they're not accurate, there's something there, right? So we're missing something. And what we think we might be missing, jury's still out, is the notion that some people believe an amp sounds a certain way, and they may not actually know it because they may not own one or they may not have actually played it, but that it's what they think it sounds like on a record. And there's nothing wrong with that, because you want something to sound great. And there are all sorts of inadequacies of real amps. And if you can somehow make that great amp sound even greater or closer to what you believe that amp sounds like, that's what hype attempts to do. Now, it's not a magic bullet or anything like that. The goal is to, hey, what if I do this? Okay, cool. Now I don't need to maybe add as many additional blocks to get what I'm looking for.
Yeah, it's almost like a context knob, right? Like if you think about classic recordings, classic performances, specific mic, there's tape, is there a room mic up? Is it going through a compressor? Is there all these things?
Is it mixed with a bunch of other instruments?
Right, yeah.
You solo those old recordings, you're like, that's way more thin and brittle than I would expect it to sound like by itself.
So it's kind of bringing back some of that context that the unadored sound would not quite get you to.
Yep.
Nice. What do you think for existing, devoted Helix users, what are the features, maybe like 2 or 3, that you think the existing user base is really going to appreciate about the new stadium and
Agoura for sure.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of the models that Sound Design and DSP have built, but man, there's something pretty special about it. It doesn't sound like a Line 6 product, and not that Line 6 is particularly more homogenous than other companies, but it's like, that's new, that's crazy. So that's really exciting.
Yeah. For existing users, like the preset compatibility is huge too. Right?
That was number one from the beginning.
That your Helix presets will be able to be loaded into Stadium, and with a few like if you're using old cabinets that we're not supporting certain things that we might not carry along, everything is going to sound as it did, or with the improved hardware, but the same as it did.
We hope.
I didn't think I would like the touchscreen as much as I did. Yeah. I know everyone says they wanted a touchscreen. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm really good at moving around Helix real fast. That's fine. But, for the last 6 months, I've had one of these, and I've been, testing it, using it every day because, we new test build, going through. And then I was having band practice earlier this week, and I wanted to adjust my sound, and I'm pulling out my old Helix because I can't pull this one out in front of my bandmates. And I go to adjust something and I just jam my finger into the non-touchscreen of Helix. I'm like, why didn't that?
Always, over and over.
Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah, this is the old one.
And that's when they knew something was coming, huh?
Yeah. I was like, oh man, I can't believe I just did that. But it's just, why am I trying to touchscreen the non-touchscreen?
Multiple times a day.
I guess I really like this new one.
Okay, so if I remember correctly, you said there's going to be at launch 6 new Agoura guitar amps,
16 Agoura guitar amps, 6 Agoura bass amps.
Okay. Which of these new Agoura models jumped out? Obviously, you mentioned the JCM 800 model. Anything else that really, for you guys as players, really knocked you?
I was surprised with the Rev models, the Rev generator. We have a really good working relationship with Rev. They let us use the name. They're our friends. And we did a model of it in Helix, and it was good. And then we did this one, and there are so many gain stages in that amp. And so we just kept putting in the new ones and stuff, and it came out, and like, this is good. This is really fun. Normally, I don't quite play that much gain, but I still had just so much fun playing those models when we completed them.
Mine's probably the 50th anniversary Ampeg, which is the real amp is the best rock bass sound I've ever heard. And Dom Liberati's product manager, and he just knocked it out of the park with that amp. I think it sounds amazing. And we ended up using it in Ampeg SVT Suite, and it was just crazy, too burly, too complicated to work in Stadium. And then we redid it, or redid quite a bit of it as an Agoura bass amp, and it has that magic.
Nice.
Yep.
So-
For me, it's the AC30. Like it's, I don't know. I'm not even usually a huge AC30 person, which I guess speaks to how much I like it. Like I play it and it's just so responsive. And, like you mentioned, some of the Brian May gnarliness, the ripple and the intermodulation distortion and just the way it responds and the way it sags, that amp is so fun to play.
One of the things that jumped out was Nexus, and obviously there's a ton of connectivity already on here. Can you talk a little bit about the expandability that's gonna offer users over the years as you continue to develop that?
Yeah, Line 6 has had a bunch of connectivity protocols over the years. We had FBV for the remotes that would connect to the Spider amps, that also connect to Pod HD rack, things like that. And then we had VDI, and then we had L6 Link, and so we had all these connectors that were actually quite expensive and complicated. And we want, and they were all sort of limiting in some way, so we'd have to include all of them. And we wanted something that could kind of cover all the bases, plus things that we weren't sure we wanted to go down, or things that customers would say, "Hey, I wish you made this. I want to be able to use this. I want to connect this. I need more ins and outs of this type."
So one of the things that's obviously changed pretty dramatically over the past 10 years or so is the prevalence of FR cabs. I think historically a lot of people were going direct to front of house, maybe using headphones, studio monitors, but I imagine that's probably changed a little bit how you approach sound design and just general voicing of everything on Helix.
Yeah, I mean, it does. Whenever I try to make an amp model, I try to test it in a number of ways. I'll test it FR through studio monitors, through a PA speaker. And then a lot of times I will do, I prefer to play through guitar cabinets because I just like the way they sound in the room. And I tend to play dingy punk rock venues where my guitar isn't going to the PA. So I need to come from my own source. And so I will plug into sometimes a giant solid state power amp and then a guitar cabinet. So I always test out the full models that way. And then I will also test them in both preamp and full amp into, say, the effects return of a tube amp and see how it sounds like that. So the idea is that I want to see if there's any gotchas or anything bad to eliminate for that, because I know a lot of people use them in so many different ways. And there's, I would say probably at least 3/4 of the people use some kind of FR direct solution. But for the people who don't, like myself, I really want to make sure I'm not excluding anyone.
Yeah. So you're almost doing the old Nix engineer thing of, burning a CD, putting it on a cassette, running out to the car, all the things for translation, essentially.
Maybe I can get a cassette tape adapter and put it in an old car stereo, see how it sounds on like a 76 Nova.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think we're all dating ourselves here.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So the Stadium XL is expected to start hitting our local guitar centers this fall. When someone walks into their local GC, walks over probably to our pedal table area, what would each of you recommend? Is there a specific preset, or what would you recommend they check out? We'll go around the horn to be blown away.
The clip. Before they even play a chord, we want them to hit the little paperclip icon so you can actually hear the person who created that preset play their instrument with that style and that at that tempo, at that input level. So you can actually hear how that preset's supposed to sound like in context. Otherwise, you have no starting point. You're just going, nope, because you're playing the same style, perhaps with the wrong instrument all the way through.
So that might even just hey, be mindful. You want to leave some space here for the repeats of the delay, that sort of thing. Yep. Yeah. All right. What do you got?
I'd say probably load up the preset of your favorite amp, the Agoura model. Make sure it's the Agoura model, not the other ones, because they're in there too. And try to find a quiet moment in the GC. And then just twist all the knobs, see where they go, see how it feels and how everything interacts, and be mindful of putting the knobs where you would on the actual amp that you use. So, if you play a Fender style amp and you're used to running it around 2 or 3 because that's the right volume, put the knob on 2 or 3. Don't be like, oh, it's not loud enough, I'll just crank it 10. There's another volume for that. Put the gain on where you would, and just explore fully in how the models change based on how you play and how the knobs interact.
Nice. So what you're saying is get cozy at your local guitar center.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's snug. Yeah. Sleepy time tea.
Yeah. So just really sit down for a few hours at your local guitar center. Yeah. Keep grabbing guitars, keep going through it until you buy it. Yeah. All right, Brandon, what do you got?
And I'll say play around with focus view, which is the view that we have right here, where it's an XY pad and you have different sounds in different areas of the screen, which Eric's showing you right here. and let that turn the knobs for you. It makes you interact with it differently because there may be parameters that you just don't know what they do, or you might think that you like it a different way. But using these descriptive words, I think, can make you end up in places that you might not, and sounds that you might not have normally gotten to.
Nice. Well, guys, thank you so much for your time today. I know it's a big day. Congratulations on 10 years.
Thank you.
And here's to another 10 years. So if you want to pre-order your new Helix Stadium or Helix Stadium XL starting on June 25th, you can go to guitarcenter.com. You can contact one of our expert gear advisors, or you can just pop in at your local GC.